Hi everybody, welcome to Simply Scuba and welcome to Ask Mark, where I do my best to answer all of your questions. Now, next week you might not see my smiling face because next week we have a short work week. It's the Queen's birthday or something, so I might not do an Ask Mark next week, but it will go back to normal the week after. But in this week's Ask Mark, I'm answering questions about skinny neck seals, cold water undersuits, speciality pre-requisites, that's a fun word to say, scratched dive computer screens, high capacity cylinders and diving watches. But if you've got any interesting questions that you want me to answer, let me know down in the comments below, and if you use the hashtag Ask Mark in your comment, it just highlights it so that I can get to it on the next show. But let's dive straight in with the first question, which this week comes from Fem Kriah, who says, "Hey Mark, I just bought a used dry suit. It's in really good condition with an all new neck and cuff seals. Unfortunately, my neck is very slim and I'm pretty skinny to begin with. Sometimes when I move or stay upright in the water, all of the air moves upwards and the seal breaks and I get a bit of water inside of the suit. Nothing major, but still annoying. How would I best fix that? I thought about getting a custom latex collar which fits my neck perfectly, which I put on before I put the dry suit on and then put the dry suit neck seal over that. Maybe another collar over that to sandwich it in. Thank you for your advice." Yeah, so this is a fairly common issue if you do have a skinny or slight neck. The first thing that I'd think about is whether that neck seal, okay, it's a new neck seal, but they come in different sizes. So it might be that they've just fitted a standard size neck seal, whereas actually it might be better for you to just take it in, get someone to fit a small neck seal to your dry suit. That is an option. Neck seals are always pretty tough because you don't want it so constrictive that it's cutting off blood flow. I've been in dry suits like that, rental suits. They're like, "Oh, good news, we have these brand new rental dry suits." Practically try to kill me, this one. So no, you don't want it too tight, you want it just tight enough. You mentioned that when you go vertical in the water, of course, all the air goes to the highest point and it bubbles out, and that's what lets the water in. Yeah, that is a fairly common phenomenon. I even get that with my dry suit. If I have a particularly large amount of insulation inside of my dry suit and I do go vertical, then yeah, that happens. It's just something that happens with dry suits. It's better just to stay horizontal if you can. There do exist seals, like you mentioned, like a collar system. The one that I know of is called BioSeal, I believe. It's a weird material. It's a very soft, stretchy material. It's quite tacky, but it doesn't leave any kind of residue. It's not like adhesive or anything. It's just that kind of material that just feels a bit tacky and it sticks to things. It's a bit like a jelly. You put it on, you get one that's sized for your neck and you get them that are sized for your wrists. And yeah, you put it on and then you put your dry suit on over the top of it and it seals around that. One of my buddies, he was a doctor, he uses it as well. So yeah, they definitely do work. They only add 3, maybe 4 mil thick either side, so it is going to help you out. But yeah, the main points for that would be double check the size of the neck seal is correct for you. Try and stay as horizontal as possible, and also look for something a bit like BioSeal. Another thing that might help if you're new to dry suit diving, or just anybody who's new to dry suit diving, is try and look like Batman. Not with pointy ears or anything, but try and look with your shoulders as much as possible, because every time that you move your neck, the neck seal gets pulled and that can start to sort of shift that seal, which means that water's gonna get in. So try and look with your shoulders as much as possible and do your best to stay as horizontal as possible. TA Lin 7 says, "Hey Mark, I'm relatively new to UK diving and deeply dislike the cold. What is your ideal base layer and undersuit combo for diving dry suits in the UK in the summertime, and what changes for winter? Also, what are your thoughts on heating systems such as the Santi BZ400 Extreme and the heated vest? Thanks." So In the summertime, in a membrane, because it changes between the two. Actually, if I stay with my neoprene dry suit, because I don't dive that as much anymore. So neoprene in the summertime, I'd literally just wear like my staff polo shirt when I was teaching and whatever trousers I was wearing. I trusted it that much, and that was all the insulation that I really needed on a summer dive. In the winter time, I dove that neoprene dry suit in the Arctic Circle. Actually, they were just in my 4th element Arctics. I must have been as an undersuit. That's all I really needed. The neoprene itself is incredibly good at insulating. If you're just in a membrane dry suit, nowadays I tend to dive my J2 as a base layer all year round. So that's just a general go-to. I wear that most of the time. It's very good at just wicking moisture away so that you're always dry. It has those silver ions inside of it, so it cleans or it kills a lot of the nasties, so you don't have to wash it quite as often. So I'll wear my J2s just day to day in the winter, just walking the dogs and whatnot, because it's just that extra layer. Then I use BZ400X, which is the non-heated version of the undersuit. That's my general go-to. I tend to wear that in the winter time, but when it starts to get a bit colder, I end up using my my dry glove system. So I have no, I don't. I have waterproof Ultima fitted onto my dry suit, and then just a thin like latex glove with, I think they're the Scuba, those blue gloves to keep my hands warm. I think I got some alpaca woolen gloves for the real cold, but most of the time I just wear those blue ones. But I've got a pair of black ones as well. I think they're like some kind of natural wool. In the summer months, depending on the dive and what I'm doing, I don't usually wear too much sort of gloves. I had some 3mm gloves, which are my usual like sort of summer go-to, so that you still have plenty of dexterity and you don't have a huge amount of insulation, but in the summer months you don't need that much. But yeah, BZ400X is my usual go-to undersuit nowadays. As far as heated undersuits, yeah, they're perfectly fine. You just have to plan accordingly and understand how it can affect your decompression, because if you have it switched on at the beginning of the dive, then you're on gassing really quickly, especially at your deepest point, obviously. And then if you're starting to shallow up, starting to go through your stops, and it, for whatever reason, you run out of battery or something goes wrong, you don't have that heating anymore, then you're off gassing slower. So you need to extend those stops just to compensate for it. But no, I have no real issues with it. The Santi ones I do prefer because you have that external connector, comes through that thermo valve, as opposed to an internal dry suit undersuit. I just tend to hear a lot of horror stories of people with, they were using nitrox to fill up their suit and it reacted with whatever it was. Whereas if you've got an external battery, external connectors, if something starts to malfunction, you just disconnect it and you're disconnected. And that's another good thing about the Santi ones, is that they are, the BZ400 is effectively the BZ400X, but with those heating elements. So even without the heated power coils, it's still a very insulated undersuit. And the new one that just arrived this week is the 4th element Halo AR. Uses very clever technology. I was talking with them, it's true, years and years ago, I think back in like 2016, they were planning to build a dry suit undersuit that used argon, because argon's very, I can't remember which way around it is. It has a very high or a very low thermal coefficient, so it stores heat very, very well. And they were trying to figure out a way to get that into an undersuit, whether by using little beads that were full of argon. They were trying to work it out. They seem to have finally figured something out, because they're using this argon material. And I had a sample, I think that was last week or the week before, very, very thin. It's only about 2 or 3 mil thick, and it's incredibly warm. So yeah, best of both worlds, nice and thin, but also incredibly warm. That's just been released, so yeah, worth checking out. SCT15H_07 asks, is advanced open water a prerequisite for progression to other courses, or can I just cherry pick specialities after completing open water? It depends. I think some specialities require advanced open water, but most of them, I think a vast majority of specialities, no, you can just jump straight from open water to the speciality. But every single speciality will have a list of prerequisites. I imagine if you go to Paddy's website on each specific speciality, it will break down exactly what's prerequisites. It's usually age, minimum dive, and yeah, like open water. But for ones like, I want to say like ice and cavern and whatnot, I think there's like 5 or 6 that require advanced open water, and you have to be over 18 to be able to enroll in those courses. But advanced can be a good way to sort of shortcut some of those specialities, because advanced open water is basically 5 dives, and 3 of those is the first dive of 3 individual specialities that you get to pick. 2 of them you have to do, you don't get to choose which ones. You have to do deep and you have to do navigation, but the other 3 are basically the first dive of a speciality that you and your instructor choose, and then if you want to do that specific speciality later on, you've already done dive 1, so all you have to do is dive 2, 3 and 4, or however many on that speciality. So no, advanced open water isn't a prerequisite for most specialities, but it is for some. But on Paddy's new website, I think if you go onto each speciality, it breaks down, here are the prerequisites. This is what you need as far as to enroll in this course. Otherwise, just ask your instructor, because they'll have their instruction manual, and they'll be able to, we literally have a manual that says, this is the course, this is what's required for the student to enroll on the course, this is what's required for the student to complete the course, this is what you're required to teach them. It's very spelled out, so yeah, just have a chat with your instructor. Edo Lempart says, hey Mark, you are my second favourite show. The first is Better Call Saul. I never watched Better Call Saul, for no particular reason. I love Breaking Bad, but I just never, I don't know, for whatever reason, I just never started watching Better Call Saul, but I don't know, maybe. Thank you very much for all of the informative videos. You're more than welcome. Now, unfortunately, I've noticed that there's a small scratch on my Perdix AI. Is it possible to remove it or change the front element? Thanks, Edo. You might be lucky, actually, because the Perdix actually comes factory fitted with a scratch protector, a screen protector. So that comes from the factory like that. Shearwater fit that for you. So you might find that if you look just at this is if it's on the screen. I think you just said the front, but if it's on the actual screen itself, you might find that you're lucky enough that if you just peel the existing screen protector off, that it's just scratched the screen protector, and then you can just buy replacements and fit that like on your phone. So if it feels kind of plasticky, that's probably the screen protector, because I think it's glass underneath it. But yeah, just have a look at the very edge around the screen, and you'll probably find, or hopefully find, that there's actually a screen protector on that. Otherwise, if you have scratched the actual glass or screen, I think it's glass, but if you have scratched the actual screen or the bezel around it, it's probably best just to have a chat with Shearwater. Shearwater are amazing as far as their customer relations. So pop them an email, send them a picture, and just say, oh, this has happened, what's the best sort of way to go forwards, and they'll recommend either returning it to them, returning it to a service center or something to be able to repair it. I have seen online for some people recommend using like toothpaste or those magic eraser pads to try and reduce scratches. Do be incredibly careful with any of those. I'd personally just message Shearwater, just see sort of what they say to get it fixed properly, because some of the toothpaste can just create even more scratches and just make it even worse. So it's not even worth trying those like home remedy things. Personally, I just email Shearwater with a picture and just say, oh, this is what's happened. What do I do, basically? But hopefully, unless you've already scratched the original screen guard, it might have one already factory fitted, in which case you can just peel that off and then just replace it with a new one. Javier Roquez P says, I'm a new diver and I'm using my air pretty fast. If I get a 130 cubic feet cylinder, do I need to change my first and second stage? I have a Cresty AC2 for primary and the Octo that comes on the set. First of all, it's not unusual for new divers to have higher breathing rates compared to more experienced scuba divers. It will naturally start to drop as you just relax into your scuba diving and become more confident. But saying that, it's not uncommon for some divers to just breathe a bit more gas. And high capacity cylinders like 130 cubic feet, we call them 15 litres, or we use 15 litres over here for higher capacity. Yeah, it's not unusual for some divers on like liverboards, whilst everyone else is diving on like 12s, they will dive on a 15, which is your, I want to say 80 and then 130. It's like talking a different language for me, but yeah, it is not unusual, so don't worry too much about it. If you change between an 80 and a 130, you shouldn't need to change your regulators. The actual volume itself isn't an issue. What could be an issue is the working pressure. So most cylinders are 232 bar or 3,400 PSI, sorry. If you go from a 3,400 to a 4,400 PSI cylinder on a 300 bar cylinder, then if you're diving with an A-clamp first stage, and it'll have an actual A-clamp. I don't have one. Instead of a screw fitting, which is DIN, if it has A-clamp, it can only fit on the lower pressure cylinders, the 3,400 or the 232 bar cylinders. If you go to a high pressure cylinder, I think you call them out there, if you dive on a 300 or a 4,400 PSI cylinder, then you'll have to you have to go for a DIN regulator, because A-clamp just can't handle those higher pressures. But as far as just volume changing, no, I'll put the same regulator on my twin 12s that I do on a tiny little 3 litre pony. The first stage doesn't need to change, but what might need to change is the actual fitting if it's a high pressure cylinder. Rodolfo Diaz Barales says, which watch are you using? Looks awesome. My usual day-to-day is my Simply Scuba. I think we just call it the 500 meter watch. I don't think we came up with, I think we were looking at names, trying to think of what we could call the watch, and we're just like, oh, shall we just call it the 500 meter watch because it's 500 meter rated? Yeah. That's my usual day-to-day watch because it's simple and effective, and it's got that bezel, which makes life so much easier when you're like cooking or timing anything. It's just much easier. Otherwise, I do wear my Shearwater Teric. It's a bit bigger and bulkier, so I tend to wear it when I'm not wearing sleeves a bit more. Because I find trying to fit a jacket over that, I tend to have fairly chunky wrists as it is, so having this over the top of it, trying to fit certain jackets over it can get a bit snug, and you can't pull it over to see the time anyway, so what's the point? But yeah, it is usually between those two, both of which are available on our website, simplyscuba.com. But Yeah, I think those are my usual go-tos. I have a few watches. I've got a Citizen automatic watch that I wear from time to time, but because it's automatic, if I don't wear it for a day or two, it stops and you have to reset it, which just gets kind of annoying. I've got like fancy dress watches as well for formal events, because I can't remember the last time I went to a formal event. But yeah, my general day-to-day watch is just my Simply Scuba 500 meter. And that's it for this week. Very nice questions again, as usual. If you have any interesting questions that you want me to elaborate on, by all means, let me know down in the comments below, and do remember to use the Ask Mark hashtag so that I actually see it and I actually reply to it. Remember to head over to simplyscuba.com as well for all sorts of interesting new scuba diving equipment. Yeah, as I mentioned, we've got the new Fourth Element Halo AR undersuit. Yeah, very interesting. I just did the video for it as well. I think that went live on Thursday. That's when the embargo ended, so we can start talking about it now. But yeah, links to things are going to be down in the description below. Yeah, if you don't see me next week, don't worry. It's not that I've forgotten. I just literally don't have enough time to record it all. But I'll be back the following week. But anyway, thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.